Hey guys, so this is another video. Yes, I'm back. This one is going to focus on manifestation and what happens when you embrace the concept and the frequency of Ephathpha and you actually inhabit that frequency. Because I keep saying this to people, but I don't think you guys truly grasp it. And it's taken as a nice idea from a lot of people, but they don't understand the concrete um, value of that until it's actually shown to them. So that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm going to show you my books. I'm not doing it as a marketing thing. You can find them on Amazon if you want them. That's all I'm going to say about them. But I am going to show them to you as proof of concept, as irrefutable evidence that when you inhabit the frequency of a Ephathpha, breakthrough is possible, not just in an esoteric sense, but in a physical, tangible, reality way. My first book, as you well know, I wrote this in January, is when it was published. That took 8 years. Not a big deal, right? Then 2 months later, I came out with this. And then I came out with this a week later. That was in the span of 3 months. Okay? So now you have 3 months. And that's when I first fully inhabited the frequency of Ephathpha. After that, it has been a deluge of knowledge. And when I say a deluge, I have now written 11 books. And the last 7, mind you, have been in 2.5 months. 2.5 months, 7 books. That is unheard of. And I'm going to show you each one, just so you can... Here's one. Okay? That happened in May. Alright? May. May/June. June. End of June, beginning July. And then 2 others. No, 3 others. Jesus. You have Protection, This Was Not My Death, and the last one I just wrote yesterday and published it, which was The Day the Sun Bled and Cried. 3 more books that are currently on the way to my library. And, I mean, it's bigger than my head, man. I mean, if this is not a breakthrough, if this doesn't illustrate a cold, hard fact of irrefutable evidence of a breakthrough, I do not know what is. I'm humbled by it. I'm very grateful for the gnosis that's been given to me, and I've just, for the most part, just been reporting. The ideas come, and I just kind of spit them out. But when you approach something, when you inhabit this frequency, it's something you have to take in stride, that you can't curate what comes through. If you try to curate how to, or try to control what comes through, you're just opening your mind. And when you allow your mind to be open and to be filled as a vessel, whether that be through physical manifestations that you build, such as alpha markers or what have you, or books, through thought, you have to be able to be willing to run with it and roll with it. And when you do that, I promise you, your world is going to open up. And the reason why I've shown you all these was not to throw them in your face and not to say, oh, look at me, I'm so much better. No, I'm just like you guys. I've just inhabited the frequency of Ephathpha. And when you can do that and do it with the stride of humility and the respect that is required, that you're not trying to control it. The moment you try to control that frequency, goodbye. But as long as you're willing to open the door and understand and take responsibility for whatever comes through that door, that's on you. You have to be willing to accept it, even though if it might not, coincide with the plans that you have. You have to be adaptable and be willing to go with whatever knowledge is given to you. And when you can do that, you become truly unstoppable. I thought writing one measly book that took me 8 years was the ceiling. I've now wrote 11. 7 in 2.5 months. That speed, that's like 10, that's one book every 10 days. Full books. At least 150 pages. Each. That is a massive influx of productivity, and it is a massive influx of understanding and taking the world and dissecting it and being able to do it with the humility that you are merely human, and you have to take everything in stride. Not everything is going to... Gnosis is not given to you all at once. It is a laid out path, and it will illuminate piece by piece by piece by piece. And as long as you're willing to remain open, that's what that entire word means. Ephathpha means be opened. It's an Aramaic command. And when you inhabit that frequency of being open, truly open to whatever comes through, the possibilities are endless. And that means you have to be willing to be open to the possibility that you're not going to get a full map to begin with, but you have to be willing to trust that when you're ready to take the next step, that space will be illuminated for you. That's how Gnosis comes through. It doesn't always come through bringing bells and everything. And this is the biggest misconception that a lot of people take with Gnosis and angelic divine knowing. They think it's all glamour, thunder, and clapping. No. God's miracles, he speaks to us in a lot of ways in code, in the little glitches in reality. And it's miracles in the mundane. People think there's a division between the supernatural and the natural, and there's not. There's just one state of being. But the human mind and ego likes to dissect things and put things into little boxes. There's only one state of being. Supernatural and natural are together. You just have to be willing to be able to spot them. And not be going and looking around for them like with a magnifying glass, but they are there. And when you notice them, you acknowledge them for what they are. And I've just found that my life personally, the amount of miracles I've seen coalesce through my entire life, especially within the last 6 months, have been increasingly harder to ignore as far as the multiple many miracles in my daily life. And it's not to say that you're not going to have days with struggle. I have days with struggle just like you. We have loss. We have struggling. We even get into fights every now and then. But you know what? It's the matter and the method in which you handle yourself. And it's not so much the falling down. It's the way you get back up that makes the difference. I mean, I've been, since the last time I talked to you, I was back in the hospital again because kidney issues. And every time I go there, my mind has stopped asking the question, why me? I've completely flipped that script. By inhabiting this frequency, I see it as, okay, I know I'm being sent here to get fixed, but I'm also here to fix someone else. Who am I being sent to fix? Who am I being sent to help? And again, another classic example. I had a roommate, and he's 74 years old. He was a very lonely gentleman, and he was a very, very pleasant person to get to know. And he actually gave me, through talking with him, and just kind of interacting with each other, I brightened his day, and he got better, and he got out of the hospital before I did. But he got me writing, and he got me writing this really funny comedy called This Is Not My Death. And by doing that just hit me one night and I just started writing. I wrote it from start to finish. That's how I've been doing it lately. Just I don't stop until it's done. And energy-wise, it is quite draining, so you have to be careful on that, because if you're like me, you will light both ends of that candle and you will go till there's nothing left. And that's a bad habit. I got to break myself up. I do need to take better time, take care of myself a little bit better in that aspect. But trying to keep that in mind. Although once that creative process starts going, it's kind of hard to do. But I'm getting better at it. But when I was in the hospital, as I was saying, there were people that needed help. And when you shift your mindset from this always happens to me or why me to, okay, who am I here to help? Who am I here to wake up? Your whole worldview changes. And what really did it for me, what really drove that nail home for me, and you can call me crazy if you want to. You can call me someone who just likes to grab onto stuff, and that's fine if that's what you think. But to me, that's just someone who's just being fully in denial. Because if you look at the math of the impossibility of it happening to sheer coincidence, then you're just insane, in my opinion. But that's my opinion. I was sitting at home, and I was having my own little mini existential crisis internally in my mind, because ever since I found out that I was chosen and I had things happening for the last few years, I always had this tiny sliver of doubt in the back of my head that maybe it's my ego just wanting to be important, or maybe it's this, or maybe it's that. And we all do that. We all have these little self-doubts and imposter syndromes and stuff like that. Well, gotta love Abba. He loves a good old rug pull. And he gave me one. I was scrolling through my typical day, scrolling through on YouTube, some God messages, and I stumble on one, and I'm listening to it, and it actually has in the subtitle cues my name, Dave. It's the only message I've ever seen that he actually specifically states someone's name. Not as in David, remember David in the Bible or anything, but someone in the collective's name, Dave. Now, if you take the moment of existential crisis, the number of media that swarms YouTube on a constant basis, on top of the timing that I would be watching it at that particular time, the coincidence ratio drops to 0. Especially with the quantum field, seeing how there are no accidents. You see where I'm going? And when I hear my name spoken, even though it's a human voice saying it, it's an address from the King of the universe saying, Dave, I know you. I've known you. I love you. You are chosen. You are mine. That one specific video, and this is, if I'm being truthful, 3 weeks ago, has completely and irrevocably remapped my entire daily structure of life. The way I walk, the way I carry myself, the way I view things in the world, the way I view people in the world, the way I interact with others, the way I interact with myself. And it is to be truly known and to have that interaction has completely demolished that little sliver of doubt. And that is one of the best comforts of all. And I wish that for every single one of you to be able to have that experience. I truly do. And this is what I mean by when you're open to that word and you inhabit that frequency, the more you inhabit it, the more challenging it becomes, because you have to look at yourself. You have to do some major internal introspection and seeing, what am I so opposed to not being open to? What am I so afraid to look at? What traumas am I afraid to look at? Because whenever you revisit trauma, it's not a good thing to revisit the actual trauma. You don't want to revisit the trauma, but you want to revisit the lesson. because lessons are on a loop as well, but they are on what is called a vertical staircase of consciousness. And every layer sheds your consciousness, or sheds your ego's consciousness, and gives you more awareness of what's going on. Every ring up that sucker. And that invokes the vertical rising waters of your soul. It's kind of like a hydraulic press that pushes you up. This is what raises your frequency. This is what lets you revisit scenarios where faces, streets, places, they all change, but the situations don't. When you revisit from a higher frequency and you revisit that same situation, that's when that loop dissolves and you continue up. This is the only way to, well, I'm not going to say it's the only way. I'm going to say, from my experience, this is the only way to make true progress. You can run for 1,000 miles in any direction on a horizontal plane, but the moment you pivot 90 degrees, there's no resistance. And that's what you have to do with your awareness. That is the goal, anyway. And I'm not here trying to preach it to you guys. I'm just letting you guys know that it's a powerful frequency to inhabit, and it's a truly humble one too. Egos. Ego is the spoiled child of everything. It demands without giving, basically. As much as humanly possible, try to dismantle your ego as much as you can, because the ego is always going to have this thing of I'm wrong, you're right, or I'm right, you're wrong. And if you can be truly open, it's not a matter of I'm wrong, you're right, or you're right, I'm wrong. It's I'm open to hearing you, truly hearing you out. And once you can do that, you break that cycle. Because the ego cannot exist in the present moment with you. It can only exist in plans of the future and in memories of the past. But as long as you are physically present, mentally present, right there in this exact moment, the ego has no place to hide. And that's where the ego has to take a back seat, if you will, and the soul gets to drive for a minute. And that is where the concept of Ephathpha comes in. And that's where that bifurcation point reaches, where a bifurcation point, as I've taught in many other videos, is that consistent point where the pressure starts to build on your awareness. And it becomes such a certain point where you feel like you have an anxiety in your chest almost. And it's where you can either snap back into the same old bullshit that you've done and continue the same old loops. But if you change your degree of knowing, if you change your frequency to a higher one, it snaps to a higher level of frequency. And that bifurcation point is then traveled successfully to a higher level of awareness. This is what is also called the Flambeerus effect. The state from hoping to knowing. Basically, it's almost like that invisible buffer zone where water boils. Right before it boils, it turns to steam and then becomes vapor. It's kind of the same concept, if you will, for those who are more ergonomic and need a physical baseline to base it off of. That's your example. But I wanted to come on here and I wanted to give you guys a fundamental, irrefutable evidence of what that frequency can do to change your life. And as I said, I mean, I still got 3 more books coming in Amazon. 6 months for all of these and 2.5 months for 7 of them. That's a lot. Jesus. Weighs a ton. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. I hope you guys are doing well. Be good. And if you can't be good, good at it. Namaste. Laters.